So if you played the original Tomb Raider game, it started off very similar in the sense that Laura seems to keep falling off things. Well, I should say the Tomb Raider 2013. When I was playing this, I saw that parallel where she first starts the post-tutorial area by falling down a pit and skewing herself. And so when she started to fall in this case, I thought like her ice pick was going to hit her. And if you haven't played the original if you haven't played the original Tomb Raiders, you should probably do that. But if you haven't played Tomb Raider, the reboot from 2013,
it was said the prophets
highly recommend it.
One of the forgotten cities. Legend speaks of an oasis.
So this is the first thing. So we just started down here. This is where we land. So here's our vista shot. This establishes the scene that we're in. This is kind of more of an artist thing, but this is something that level designers really have to take into account and focus on, is having this type of thing of providing this outlet for the story to be told without actually interacting with the story. So we have this vista, we see this city, we see a bunch of explosions, so we're like, all right, something's going on down there. And we're forced to move through in a linear manner. And we have to come around this corner, and the first thing we see, we even stopped here. It stopped us here, and this is the scene that we had. And so this is just a bunch of rock faces. And so if we hadn't had that stop, if Laura didn't stop to like look at that, to listen to her dad's recording, we wouldn't have seen this. And if we look at this, we can kind of see that there is a bunch of flat spots here. So we're like, you know what, maybe we're going to need to use some shimmying. And if you run up and jump, that's exactly what's going to happen. So it's this framing that the level designers had that told the player to stop and go, all right, you got to do this. And helping them prepare for what's coming ahead. So whenever you're doing level design, and it's something, in this case, it's something kind of similar to this, where the player might not know what to do, it's always best in traditional games. In VR, it's a little bit different. But in traditional games, you always want to basically, you can just frame them and have them look directly at it. And then it's on them to see, you know, maybe I have to do something with this. And then again, kind of just segueing into more framing, obviously we don't really have many places we can go. Over off to the side here, there's a little loot box that we'll pick up. And level designers hide these types of things off in areas that might be like dead ends. In areas that might be dead ends, as kind of a way to reward exploration, which is something that obviously Lara Croft, she's an explorer, something you want to do. So even if the player goes this way, it's like, you know, oh wait, we can't go this way, but here's a little prize for your time. But we're framed here in that we saw this as soon as we climbed over. We saw this little pole, or this little inlet here, and all these markings, and even the rim of, I can't really point at it, but like the rim of this tube is highlighted in such a way that's like, you know, maybe this is important. So we're not explicitly saying, hey, go and like interact with this, like some games do that have objective markers, which this game does, but it's a little different. But we frame it so that the player doesn't have to rely on it. And you shouldn't, when you're a game designer, like, you shouldn't make it so that the player has to rely on a single system when you can design in ways to make it easier for them.
Some kind of model.
So for all the people who are joining, I see we have a bunch of viewers right now. Welcome. My name is Joe. I'm a level designer. I've been working on level design for anywhere between probably 7 to 8 years by now. But I've been working on it professionally since I graduated college in 2014. What we're going to be going through here is going to be playing Rise of the Tomb Raider a bit, and I'm going to be talking about the level design as I go through. So it's kind of like I joke about how whenever I play a game, I always overanalyze it, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing here. basically it's just going to be, instead of keeping it to myself, I'm just going to say it out loud. So again, a framing thing. This is, we come out of the cutscene, this is what we see, is we see this painting. And it is lit up, it is highlighted, and the lighting and the architecture even kind of pushes us in that direction. Because if you see, it's framed in such a way that this little platform right here that we're standing on, and then these two columns kind of frame that picture, and it's like, you know, maybe we should be looking at that. And the way that it's lit, there's really no light here. This is a technique that is called phantom lighting. Phantom lighting is kind of like a cheap way of adding light where there shouldn't be any light, but allows us to highlight things a bit more. So obviously we come over and we can translate it, and now we know how that, hey, we can translate these things. And we learn that there are skills that we can learn, so in this case, Greek. I really wish that I could learn Greek just by looking at like frescoes like this and paintings, because I took some art history classes in college, and I think by the end of that I would have been like fluent in Greek if it worked like this.
Some sort of marker.
So now we're kind of just left here. So we see that, and this is what we're looking at. So it's obviously wants us to go over here, and it's the brighter spot. So kind of in this direction. Go into the darkness, nothing here. This is just where we came from. So obviously it doesn't want us to go that way. Lighting is really important in level design. It's something that level designers work with the lighting guys. If the studio is like big enough to hire people who do only lighting and lighting techniques, then they'll work with that. But usually it's with the environmental artists and the designers, they work together. So we saw that one, we saw this one, so now we get a nice little bonus of, hey, we can do it again. Or if we miss the first one, we could get this one. So there's a bunch of options for us to actually be able to learn this. And then even just one more, just in case, blatantly right there, we have to walk by it. The icon shows up. It basically completely draws our eyes there. So let's see if I can do that again. I think the icon will show up. As we walk by, we have to see this. The lighting is framing it in such a way that our eyes look over there. And basically, we're like, that's something we want to do. So, again, back to what I was saying earlier with the rules of 3. Thanks, Giant Squid Girl. Back with the rules of 3, we do it 3 times and then we know it. In this case, it's a bit of a different interpretation because we see, hey, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, in 3 different ways that we could actually learn it, and one that basically forces us to. So this is just this is going to be another pacing thing and another introduction to mechanics with these walls that we walk up to. Obviously, there's no other way out, so if you had no idea what was going on, because remember, as level designers, we don't want to necessarily assume that our players are stupid, but we need to treat them as such that they are stupid to the environment that we have created. They're not very knowledgeable in our world, so we have to kind of handhold them through, and how creative we do that is basically how well we end up, basically is how that actually ends up describing how things are. I lost my train of thought on that one. So in this case, we're basically forced to learn these little see-through things. The lower walls, we can actually break through those.
A secret entrance.
And to do that, we basically just press E. And it says so for that. And it doesn't say press E to clear, it's press E to interact. So it's basically, we know that we have to do it 2 or 3 times before it actually lets us through. And again, back to the laws of 3. Something that I don't know if they did it in Rise of the Tomb Raider.
It's amazing.
Actually, before I say that. So again, camera taking over for us as we were passing through. I'm moving my mouse around, I cannot look. This is exactly what they want me to see. And the way that the camera works is I can't take over camera control until I move. So we're like, all right, so obviously this is going to be of some importance for us, and we are probably going to be interacting with this structure coming up. Yeah, there's a lot of things that film and games pull. So we actually haven't done, oddly enough, it took, what, 30 minutes into the game before they actually technically taught us how to jump. And it's less about how to jump, and it's showing the limitations of our jump. And so this is something that level designers have to keep in kind of just keep in our head when we're designing levels, is the limitations of the player character. And I'm not saying the limitations of the player, it's the limitations of the player character. So in this case, Laura. And it's basically showing, all right, this is a pit that we can jump over, and this is the size of holes that you can jump over. If you do not hold down space. If you hold down space and have a running jump, you jump a little bit longer. But if you just tap the space bar, that's the minimum distance that you get. And it teaches it to us in a safe way, so that even if someone comes in and they're just a spacebar tapper, they tap it once, they fall, it's still safe, and then they can just come over and climb out. So it's not that bad. Now, my guess is, and I'm going to say this because I kind of remember what to do, the next time we see that jump, it's going to be over a pit, and we might not be able to get out of that pit. So this one, in this case, taught us the whole wall climbing thing. This shouldn't necessarily be new because we've already done it before. And now this is kind of one of those things where it taught us how to do it in a more dangerous setting, because if we failed that, we're going to fall. And then again, we're now combining everything that we just learned, which was jumping and then the wall jumping, which is demarked. It's marked off by the white scrapes on the walls, and usually if a ledge is white, you can kind of see it. Again, I'm pointing at my screen, but you can actually do it. Can actually see me do that. The white edges of it are basically those throughout the rest of the game are going to be like, you can ledge jump onto these, and there's a lot of them. Balance beam, that's going to... Well, okay, so here, like I said earlier, when the next time we were going to see a big long jump, it was going to be over a pit where if we fall, then we are probably going to die. So we obviously don't want to screw that up. Add in some cinematic flair, and you get it one last time where we definitely would have died. So here's this is the building that we saw and was framed when we came in. Like I said, here we are. We were going to be here. It was of importance. We usually game designers do not highlight anything that isn't important, because those types of highlights, either via lighting or colors or something, that something is going to be something that's going to be used. And yeah, it is kind of like learning on the job, but it's kind of like it's kind of like when SpongeBob, I don't know if this reference will work, but like SpongeBob and the Krabby Patty, he just kind of learned by doing it, and then later they showed you the video on how to make the Krabby Patty using the secret sauce and stuff like that. So here we are on the building that we were framed on, and over there is where we came from. So we just traversed all through here, and so this nice little look back is just kind of a nice place that if the player wants to, they can look back and be like, hey, look, we made it through this. I'm proud of myself for that. So adding those little things in can really help enhance the player's kind of experience with the game. Now, I don't see anything around here that makes me think, hey, you know, maybe we should be exploring a bit. So we kind of see the white marks on the edge there. We see the white flat scraping things to show, hey, we can wall jump, and then we can move on to the next section. So that was it for that.
A way through.
Now, I don't know if they do this in Rise of the Tomb Raider, but in the original, when I say original, I'm talking about the 2013 Tomb Raider. I apologize for that. It's not the original Tomb Raider, but Tomb Raider 2013. These scenes here, where like Laura is either crawling through water or crawling through catacombs and pushing away cobwebs and stuff like that, this is how they actually mask map loading.
Come on.
Like right there. This is how they mask map loading. Levels, even though we have really powerful engines nowadays, we can't easily put story-driven levels like this all together into a single level. Sometimes there's just limitations of the engines depending on whatever we decide to use. You just can't actually do it. So we have to break the levels down into smaller little bits and pieces. And how you do level transitions can really help with either enhancing or breaking immersion.
Against religious pilgrims. Order of Trinity.
If you've played Half-Life 2, you probably, or any Source game that has loading, well, I guess in that case it would only be Half-Life. The Half-Life series has loading screens. You know how jarring those can be. And they hide it in this game by masking it with either cinematic events or those types of transitions. Yeah, so how you do level transitions can also affect waypoints. Sometimes you need them, sometimes you don't. Waypoints are a whole other different thing. So it depends on how you do it. Lara Croft, I should say this game does have waypoints that we'll get to in a bit. They're campfires. So we're coming in here. In terms of framing on this is purely, in my opinion, a purely artistic framing. If I pull out a little bit of art history, this whole framing here of the guy on the spear and the people here and the lighting, this pulls back to, and I'm going to kind of show a little bit of like a hobby of mine. This kind of pulls back to like really old, what's the word? I don't want to say Greek, but it's like Italian frescoes. They were always about like this war stuff, and they always had this type of framing, especially this triangular shape, so like the tip of the spear down. It's used all over the place. And what is up? A person and who I saw said hi, but I didn't catch your name, so hello. The Colobro, hello. So again, we have to come in. We come in and we could run ahead and skip through this, but it is, the player usually wants to take the shortest route. What is up, official caffeine account? Players usually want to take the shortest route, or I should say the route of least resistance. Try saying that 5 times fast. You really want to go through that. The players really want to kind of go through with the least amount of work as possible. Because players are lazy, in my opinion. So they could go through here, and if they do, phantom lighting will pick up on this, and the glowing objects help too. But there is a bit of phantom lighting in that area.
The Order of Trinity has received
and for those of you who are just joining, phantom lighting, I explained a little bit earlier, but it's basically lighting that is shown into the world, but it doesn't have like an actual source. It's not a realistic source coming in. So in this case, we have, if you kind of look over her head right now, that back wall is lit. Like actually, like there's a bit of lighting. It wouldn't necessarily be this dark based on this lighting. So you have, so probably there's a little bit of a light there to help lessen the darkness of that and draw your eye to it. In addition, if you come and you walk here, your glow stick actually starts to glow a lot more, brightening up the area when you're in such a tight area, when you're in such a tight section of the what's the word? Kind of like tight section of the level. So it highlights and lights everything else up.